Welcome back to the ProWorks channel. To start things off, I'm just going to mill up this 6/4 piece of walnut. It's going to be used for the sides as well as the lid and base. So I'm going to start off with getting it rough cut, jointed, and then planed. By resawing these boards in half, I can get a book-matched panel for the top and bottom, as well as a four-sided grain wrap around the sides of the box. Besides having flat boards, the most important part of a panel glue up is your edge joining. And so you can see me here futzing around with these boards, making sure I joint the right side of the board so that I get a nice perfect glue joint. Once I have the edges jointed nicely, I can go to a relatively stress-free glue up. If your edges are jointed nicely, you shouldn't need too much pressure from your clamps. All you need is a few on the sides to prevent any buckling, and you should be good to go. Next, I take these side pieces and bring them down to their final width and length. And these cross cuts are what determine the four-sided grain match. And this is usually more noticeable for a mitered box, but I think the small detail can hurt, even though I'm going to be using finger joints for this box. These 1/8 inch wide grooves are going to accept the top and base of the box, and I know I'm cutting through some of the fingers, but I ended up filling them in with some scrap wood later on. After getting the top and bottom panels down to their final dimensions, I cut a groove in all four sides, and this is going to allow it to float into the grooves we cut previously in the side pieces. To flush up the fingers, I just use 80 grit sandpaper. I go pretty lightly because I don't want to distort the corners at all. And after this, I'll take to the table saw to separate the lid. I'm using Brusso stop hinges for this box as well as a Brusso latch. They're pretty high quality stuff and they're also pretty expensive. So I'm just doing the layout right now with a very expensive marking knife. And after that I'll use a trim router and an 1/8 inch spiral bit to hog out most of the waste. The routing template for this latch costs about 40 bucks, so I decided to make my own. The dimensions are online, so I just put it into my CNC router and cut it out in some 1/4 inch MDF. It ended up working out pretty nicely. I'll just stick it down with some double-sided tape and go at it with my router. I'm using a 1/2 inch guide bushing as well as a 3/16 inch spiral bit. And I have some tape on the guide bushing to make a more conservative cut. And then I test the latch to see if it fits. In this case, it was a little too tight, so I took off one piece of tape and then went back at it, and I ended up getting a perfect fit. I gave every edge a 45-degree chamfer. I do this for two reasons. One, it looks nice aesthetically, but it also helps hide any imperfections between your lid and base. So if you have any sort of gap, this can help mask that a bit. And here I'm just cleaning up the inside corner where the router bit can't reach. And then next I'll be using a block plane to clean up the other edges I couldn't reach with the router. After getting all the surfaces sanded up to 320 grit, I apply a few coats of Danish oil. After each coat, I'll let the piece sit for a few minutes and then wipe it completely dry with a new paper towel. If you don't do this, the surface could get sticky because the oil will have a hard time curing. When it comes to anything that has to do with fabric, I usually turn to my mom for help, but she was too busy on an Alaskan cruise while I was doing this, so I raided her sewing room to use some of her tools. I used a combination of double-sided tape and contact cement to get everything adhered correctly, and then once I got back to my shop, I could install it into the box with some more contact cement. The final step was to attach the latch. I used the quickset epoxy for this, and you don't need much here because there's not much room for the epoxy to go. There's a couple indents in the latch, which I think is to create a mechanical hold, but other than that, a little bit will do the job. Thanks for watching.